So let's face it, the way that software engineers are viewed in Hollywood, film and TV has not always been that great. We're always portrayed as either awkward and isolated.
I'm gonna need an unlimited supply of Xenotapes and Hot Pockets.
Right, okay. Or mean and antisocial. And I don't even know what this is. But there have been some times where they've gotten it pretty right, like 2014's Halt and Catch Fire was excellent if you haven't seen that before, as well as Silicon Valley. That's really funny and also fairly accurate now and again. But of course, the absolute most relatable classic is Mike Judge's 1999 movie Office Space, which most people remember for the Lumbergh scenes or for the printer scene, but I recall mostly for when Peter decides to give up his job to do fire repair instead.
So you sure you don't want us to get your job?
That's one thing I'm definitely sure of.
So why is Office Space such a relatable movie? Well, I think there's two reasons for that. The first is that overwork isn't glamorized like it is in other Hollywood TV shows and movies. And the second is that Peter is on the verge of burnout or burning out the whole time. And so I think that is very relatable for us. So on this Blue Collar Coder, we're going to take a look at burnout. We're going to talk about the symptoms of it, and then I'm going to give you 5 ideas for how to address it in your life. So what are some symptoms of burnout? Well, you can feel disconnected from the job, not emotionally invested in it the way that you normally do. You'll have trouble waking up in the morning and getting excited about working on it, being distracted or distractible while you're working on it, not being able to retain that focus the way that you normally do. Oftentimes it can include anger and irritability. And then we get into things like being tired and being truly exhausted, even when you're not on the job. Those are symptoms as well. And it can also get into physical symptoms. It's also been linked to depression, drug abuse, alcohol abuse, headaches, and even GI issues. So this is really important. It has a major impact on your life, and it's something that we should look to address. So the first thing I want you to do is indulge in a little self-care. And by that, I mean 5 things. The first is to give yourself a big break. This has been a really tough 2 years of the pandemic and everything else going on. And I know we have super high expectations of ourselves, but we can't say that we're gonna meet those under those circumstances in all cases. I mean, that's crazy. We're holding ourselves to these crazy high expectations. And when we fail to meet them, then we get on ourselves about it, and that doesn't help at all. So give yourself a break. I give you a break. How about that? And then secondly, get a good night's sleep. That's absolutely critical. I know that when I get a good night's sleep, I feel so much better the next day. All those little things that would make me irritated before are like water off a duck's back. And the third thing I want you to do is get outside and enjoy the fresh air. That's really important. A couple of times a day, just get up from your desk, take a Zoom call outside on the porch or do some work outside on the porch. Whatever you need, just get outside and get some fresh air. And while you're out there, notice that, hey, I could be doing that a lot more. I could be walking or biking or running, those kind of things. That's the thing I do. I go running every once in a while. And I feel so much better when I do. Every article that I read when I was researching this video on burnout, the number one thing they talked about was working out. And the fourth thing I want you to do is take those vacation days. It's really critical. Disconnect from the office and disconnect from tech. And then finally, have someone to talk to that you can honestly open up to. Hopefully outside of work, certainly outside of tech would be great if you can. And if you can't, then most companies offer mental health plans that you can get remote help for free usually. I've used BetterHelp and it's great. Another thing you can do to beat burnout is to have a hobby, something not tech related. That's going to give you a real sense of accomplishment as you achieve things with it and make stuff. It's really great. And you get a whole new circle of friends around that hobby, hopefully who are not in the tech community, and that's going to be a really great support system for you. My personal hobby is woodworking, and it requires zero technology at all. Well, except for this CNC router, which needs coding, but otherwise, no technology at all. Another important thing to do to keep your mind and your passions fresh is to engage in continuous self-learning. Software is a very intellectual skill. It's all up here. So feeding your mind with new thoughts, new concepts, as opposed to continuously doing the same thing over and over and over again, is a way to keep your mind really healthy and engaged. So how do you do that? Well, you can create some side projects on technologies that you'd never use on the job. That's one way to do it. But I warn you, people tend to beat themselves up when it comes to these side projects if they don't complete them. If the point is to learn stuff, then be happy with that. It's okay, I give you permission to leave those side projects behind and not trouble your mind with that. And the other thing is to realize that sometimes we're in the mood to learn and sometimes we're not in the mood to learn. So if you are in one of those cycles where you're just not naturally receptive to new information, that's fine. Don't push it. You don't want to burn out on learning, and you don't want to burn out on learning that new skill, which actually might be really cool had you engage with it in a time when you were actually more receptive to learning it. So let's talk about that 800-pound gorilla in the room, and that's work. Would we get burned out were it not for work? I guess, maybe. I'll find out at some point. But what you can do at work really breaks down into two big buckets. The first is what you can do for yourself, and the second is what you need to do in conjunction with your manager or your company. So let's talk about what you can do for yourself, and that's really about time management and also effort management. So make sure that if you push really hard for a couple of days, that you reel it back and you try and get into a cadence where you understand when you're pushing on the gas and then understand when you're taking your foot off the gas, and you give yourself that time to recover from those periods of really high work. And make sure that your team is on board with that as well. So maybe when you pull back a little bit, they step into it, and when they step back, then you get in there and help out. And just make sure that there's a healthy team dynamic there so that everybody knows that we're all human. Some days we have great days and some days we have not so great days, and everybody compensates for that. And then also, I want you to embrace the power of saying no. That's absolutely critical. Just that. It's a superpower nowadays, actually. I know we all want to say yes to everything. I know we all want to take all the tickets and go through all of them, but understand that you don't want to overcommit. And by overcommitting, you're losing control of your time. And so the power of saying no is really the power to control your commitment level. And that's not just of stuff that you do at work, but also stuff that you would take on maybe at home or with some friends, side projects, things like that. Be sure if you're not going to be able to give your 100% to it, just say no. And finally, let's talk about the things that you can maybe change at work. So the first thing to do is, if you're having troubles, talk to your manager directly. Let's give your manager a break there for a second. If you're on Zoom, everybody's going to want to be smiling all the time and painting a happy picture on Zoom and being all upbeat and perky. And that may disguise what's actually going on underneath. So you need to have an open and honest conversation with your boss about what's actually happening with you. And then part of that conversation should be saying what a good situation looks like. Google actually did some really cool research on this a while back, where they talked to all of their teams and did lots of surveys. And what they found out was that happy and productive teams share two common traits. And the first is autonomy. They have a lot of individual control about what they're working on. And the second is that both they and external parties value what they're doing. So they find a lot of value in what they're doing. So if you don't have autonomy and you don't have that sense of value, it's easy to get burnt out in a situation like that. So whatever you can do in conjunction with your company and your manager to get the whole team into that autonomous and valued state, the better off it's going to be. But if none of that works, honestly, it's a great hiring environment out there. Super hot right now. So if it's not a fit for you, and if you're burning out at work and you know that there's just really no way out of it at this particular work, then there's probably another good job out there for you. All right, well, if you found this video on burnout helpful, be sure to hit that like button. But I really want to start a conversation with you about if you've experienced burnout and what has helped you recover from burnout. So be sure to put anything like that in the comment section down below, and we'll get that conversation started. Of course, in the meantime, hit that like button if you like the video, and hit that subscribe button if you really like the video, and you'll be notified the next time a new Blue Collar Coder video arrives. Pretty cool dude, chilling out, playing a bass, walking around the park. How cool is that? freaking awesome. I love Washington. It's so good for that kind of stuff. Yeah, so this is Lacamas Park. This is where I shot this one particular video. Mostly, actually, I think all of it now is in Lacamas, which is beautiful. Such a great little park up here in Camas, Washington. All right, see you next time.